Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, friends. Happy Friday. Can I just have an indication that everyone can hear me? Just give me a thumbs up as a good morning, heart, hi. I see no reaction. There we go. Hi. Good morning, everybody. I welcome you to the episode 4 of the Empower Hour. As today we will be doing the activating the learner engagement, speaking through the learning continuum. And we're very excited. It's been a while since we've had an Empower Hour. There was so much happening within the WCDE learning perspective and our scope. And so we just needed to make this time within the last stretch of the year to share some new insights with our colleagues as well. And one of the great things about our next 2 sessions for this year is really focusing on how we can go into 2023. And we have such an excellent guest speaker today, Mr. Dean Coubrey. And he is just to give you a short introduction about him, I think the videos I will share about the work that he do will really express more profoundly the depth as well as the benefits it will have for our understanding and our inspiration that we share and the innovations that we will share with our teachers as well as with our schools to the benefit of our learners as a whole. So just give me 2 seconds. So just to give you a brief insight about Mr. Coubrey, he's the founder and CEO of My Social Life. Dean, you can put your camera on as well, just to show everybody. Hi, everybody. This is Dean Coubrey.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Can you hear me? Is it all right?
Yes, we can hear you, Dean. We're so excited to have you here. Your camera is a little bit blurry.
Oh, okay. I'll give it a clean. I've even got my little cleaning cloth. There you go.
Awesome, but it's a little bit still, but we'll get there. You can looking a little bit better now. I think it's just a little bit of an internet challenge, but we're really excited to have you here. So let me just give our audience and our colleagues and our friends some great insights into the work that you do and just to express the depth of knowledge that you have around the topic that we will speak on today. So Dean is the founder and CEO of My Social Life. This is South Africa's first EdTech digital life skills program in schools. It's the world's first social media current affairs video show in schools called One Life, world's first video training program to support child and adolescent psychiatrists managing screen-related health issues during the pandemic. It was announced as a global ambassador by Common Sense Media, the international leaders in online safety. It recently launched the teacher program on World Teacher Day 2022 to support teachers struggling with screen-related issues and understanding online safety, mental health, anxiety, and focus. My Social Life also trained and assists psychologists and psychiatrists at Red Cross Children's Hospital and handle anonymous cases on complex crises relating to online safety and mental health that has been amplified by screens, games, and social platforms. It was shortlisted as a Startup Company of the Year at the GESS Education Awards in Dubai. It is also the Rising Star Award winner at CIO Awards Africa in Kenya. And it was also selected as Top 20 Leader of 2021 by Tribe Business Magazine. Wow. This has been quite a journey for My Social Life over the few years of its actual initiation into the learning stream, into the cyber wellness stream, into the digital wellness era. And I think this is such a prevalent and an important aspect that all of us need to be very cognizant of. I just want to share two videos to showcase the incredible work that Dean also does within My Social Life with his team. Just give me, sorry, my computer is having a lot of fun today, I see.
Let's take a quick test. You know these, right? What does this stand for? And this? Well, these speak for themselves. Have you heard of these apps? Always on, perpetually evolving, our kids' digital social lives are full of new risks, hoaxes, dangerous dares, sexual advances, and deep fakes. Educators need to stay on top of these risks and provide a platform that helps kids to navigate this ever-changing world. Schools hold the key to a three-part solution, teaching students, parents, and teachers. Underpinned by 2 digital curricula from the World Economic Forum and Common Sense Media, and supported by psychologists, cognitive therapists, and neuroscientists, the My Social Life program delivers 8 hours of lessons to grade 4 to 11 learners using age-appropriate, relatable, interactive, and on-the-pulse digital life lessons. Digital identity, digital footprint, and reputation online. Bullying and empathy. Critical thinking online. Privacy and online safety settings. Cybersecurity threats, obsessive use, mental health and focus, sexting and sexuality online, digital potential, how to explore and excel. Any school anywhere can run the program themselves with our LMS and online lesson plans, videos and assessments to earn their certificate in digital citizenship. Feedback and data from our students shows proven success, and that's the kind of thumbs up that matters. Visit our website to find out more. My Social Life. Safer, smarter humans online.
Absolutely fantastic. And just to showcase, we also have the new program that's also running now, the Teen Show for Modern Life Skills. And I just want to show this one as, just give me, there we go.
What makes me come alive?
Truly excellent. Wow. Dean, are you there? Fantastic. This is really amazing. And can I just say the video quality is excellent. It's really creative and really engaging in itself. Besides just the work that you do, just that element is very eye-grabbing and, it pulls at the heartstrings, and suddenly we're all thinking, oh, we need to know all those things every single time we go into a classroom. We need to engage our teachers, we need to engage our learners. So yeah, we are really excited for what you are about to share with us here today. And over to you. I just want to advise everybody just to also to complete the register for today's session. And we will also be sharing a survey later on within the session that Dean would love to hear your thoughts around the session and so forth. So Dean, over to you. You're on mute.
Yeah, I am on mute. I am. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys. I did something with you a while ago. It's probably a month or two now. I really enjoyed working with you. We had a really great day, and I thought there were some really interesting insights that came through. What I was struck by was while every company that we work with, every school, even any corporate that we work with, obviously always struggles with all sorts of aspects of just getting stuff done. It's difficult. There's always obstacles and blocks, but the desire and the will in those sessions was phenomenal, and so was the openness and communication. And I think that says a lot, actually, because there definitely are obstacles, everything from budget to mindset in any company. And what I was struck by was will and intention. And I'm often struck by that with respect to educators, because you're in it for something very special, which is something that I want to talk about today. So let me share some slides so that hopefully I'm a little engaging. Let me just see. Can you see these slides now, Hafiza?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, super. Right, so let me go into it. Let's just start where we should start, is what am I here for? What do I want? On the left is me. the link on the left is me. The beginning of this chain today, obviously you've got lots of inspiring people that inspire you, but the purpose of today is I'm the first link and I am going to try and link in with you. I need to make a connection to you, and the way in which I would make a connection to you is twofold. I would hopefully make you feel something, and from that feeling, I would engage your memory. You would remember either me, not that I'm important, but you would remember me and the content that I shared with you. That is then the second link. I'm going to seek to move you. So emotionally, I move you, but then that will lead on to moving you to perhaps create some other new action. And that action is going to be graded from something like 1% up to, like, let's just say 75%. I mean, I'm never going to like change your life in an hour, but ultimately, if I can do that, then you're going to pass it on to the third link. Now, the third link here is your teachers, everybody else that you work with. There would then be another link, which is the teachers that are also going to speak to their teachers. And then underneath those teachers, we have the students. And underneath those students, we have their friends. And the ripple effect of paying it forward, the energetic vibration, the osmosis can work. But first of all, it depends whether I do a good job. So we thought we were going to talk about you here, but actually, I need to be engaging today. And in that, we're going to judge whether you move 1%, 5%, 10%, 50% in terms of you go, oh, I can consider that. I'm willing to make a small change. I don't expect you to be radically different, but if every single person, the last time I looked, there were 56 people in the room, if every single person moves 3 to 5%, we can make a dramatic change. We can pick up, if there was 5%, 5 students in every 100. We can pick up 5 teachers in every 100, which can impact a whole load of other students. And the numbers dramatically add up when you're talking about more than 1 million students in the Western Province. This chain is incredibly important, and we'll come back to it. So what we need to understand here, because this is what you're going to feel from me today, is everything is a cell. This is a world famous author, and for anybody that's interested in human behavior, your own or others that you work with, this gentleman is a superpower. He is truly fascinating. He looks at the neuroscience, what happens in our brain in terms of being human, and then how we communicate, and then how that communication impacts others to change their behavior. Often brands are looking at this because they're trying to get you to buy. But ultimately, what he says is, to some degree, everybody is selling. A teacher is a salesperson. You've got to try and get that message in. And that's what today is about, is in order for me to change you, I've got to get the message in. And then you've got to pass that on to someone else. And if you don't understand what the human mechanics are of being that persuasive salesperson, then obviously you might just stay in the same way of doing things that you've always done them. And that's your choice. That's what's great, is I'm not here to say to you, you must do it like me. I'm here, which is what we do with students, is to present a case to you. And if the case is good enough, it's going to move you to some degree. And the first starting point is to understand that you are indeed, all of us, doesn't really matter what job it is, if you're communicating to some degree, you're selling. So I want you to think about this now. What would be the greatest gift to your teachers? What would be the greatest gift to each other if you were to work together? And what would be the greatest gift to your teachers? So you come back on Monday and there's something ever so slightly changed in you. Now, I don't know what that is, and it's not my business to know. But if you don't make the connection to what really matters to them and work on that, like the tip of the spear that you are moving towards, and that could be greater emotional support. It could be to do a session like this with 1,000 teachers. I come and talk to 1,000 teachers and see if I can move them all 3%, for example. But ultimately, what would be the gift? What is it that they want? They probably want greater access to Wi-Fi connection, I would imagine. They probably want more pay. They probably, that's not in your control. They probably want greater support. They probably want to feel part of a community. They probably want to collaborate. Some of these things were the things that came up. But right now, for 20 seconds, what would be the great gift to your teachers if I was to persuade you to try and give it to them? Have a think about that. Might be a couple of things. The hardest part of being human is that there's so much in our brain. And while there's so much in our brain, it's difficult to stop. Pull down the idea, look at it, place it on a piece of paper next to your bathroom mirror. Okay, now I'm pushing it, I know. And hold that in your sights. Can I tell you why? There's a thing called the reticular activating system. We teach kids about this. I taught it last Friday in a school because I said, what you have around you, what you show in your environment is actually what you gravitate towards. Okay, so you've got to have, what is this great goal that you want in terms of persuading teachers? Because if we want them to engage someone else, we've got to persuade them. And the reticular activating system works like this. Imagine if you are looking at your screen right now, lift your head and look all the way around the room, 180 degrees, even you can go further, 270, you can look over your shoulder and your shoulder. There is so much information that is all around you right now. Look up, there might have been things that you see in the room that you hadn't seen before, and then you can look right. You probably didn't notice that plug point down to the right, and you didn't notice that light bulb had gone up on the top left, and then I didn't notice that I had my wallet here, for example. Okay, why am I telling you this? This is critically important. Our brains cannot cope with the amount of stimulation that come through that 180 or 270 degrees. We can only deal with a narrow portion like this much. And so that's why we have to decide what is our focus, what is our priority. And if you make that your focus, your very single-minded focus, you can do this with your health, you can do this with anything, and you put it up around you in your environment, your subconscious brain starts working on it. So you are canceling out that other 70%. And in the 30%, it's not just a swarm of ideas, it's 3 ideas. And you place that. They used to call it like the secret, or what do you call it when it's like a magnetism. You know, there was a movie called The Secret on this, and people were like, no, it's not true. Well, actually, to some degree, it is true, because it's all about what you focus on and what you attract and what individual steps that you take. So let's go back. What would be the greatest gift to your teachers? Okay, is it really important to you? And do you think you can achieve it? If so, where is it sitting around you? Because right now, is it achievable? How are you feeling? Okay, you thought this whole talk was about engagement, but you can't engage if your battery's low. Well, you can, but you can't do it optimally. So where are you now? You've got to make that connection. And where are they at, these teachers and these students? We've got massive problems with pricing, inflation, interest rates. We've got stresses of remote working, whether that be good or bad. We've got social ills like crime and literacy and attendance. You know, this is super real. And somehow we've got to fix or slightly shift our internal health and our mind health and our mental health and our emotional health, because it completely changes the prism through which we work. And if you're hoping for short, quick fixes like, hey guys, you should use Kahoot, sure, those are there at the end. But ultimately, you won't use Kahoot if you don't have a reason, a win that you want to chase for you before you start helping other teachers. Why do you want to do it? So the whole point is, in terms of engagement, there are 3 pillars. We want kids to be behaviorally engaged, like they're there, they arrive, they want to come. And then they're emotionally engaged, they're positive, they're excited, and cognitively, they're ready to absorb. Yes, I get it. This is difficult. This is hopeful. Engaged, positive, and learning. When you think about the social ills and the motivation, it's incredibly difficult to try and achieve this. But everything changes when you start to make connections 2 teachers and 2 students. And somehow you nudge them that 3% to make a small change and say, if you get that 3%, let's move it to 7%, and then let's move it to 10%. You have to have small wins to create overall habitual behaviors. So here's why it's not difficult for them, for you, or for me, is that we have about 50,000 thoughts a day, or 60,000. Really busy brains can even go up to 70,000 thoughts a day. So our brains are swarming, and then we pick up these phones, and on them we are just scrolling and scrolling, and that's more information. And we don't stop long enough, again, to look at, what do I want? How do I feel? Am I still getting a slice of the pie for me? Which is, I agree, we're in a bit of a battle. We're in a battle with our students to see if we can steal some of that attention and that we can land and seed ideas. How do you get somebody to remember something around, a hypothesis or a Pythagoras or an equation? You can see I was useless to maths. So ultimately, there's got to be a reason that it wants to go in, because of those 50,000 thoughts, what happens is a whole lot just get archived. Like our mailbox, we just archive them. They go on a shelf and they invisibly fade away. And some of them stay. This is one of the reasons why when we have trauma, we have a car crash, deep inside this brain, a hand goes in, right in that crevice, right in the middle there, goes in and plants a seed deep in the brain, not at the top. And that's why when we climb into a car after that, the seed is so deeply entrenched that it's very difficult not to have an emotional or cognitive reaction when you're in that car. And the only way to do it is to actually bring that seed to the surface and almost like boil it off, like you're boiling off water. And so the point of this is we are in a battle to gain attention, gain focus, plant seeds of memory, and get them to stay there. The problem with the education system is that you're in a battle with all sorts of technological devices, apps, platforms, and I'm afraid social media and games. It's so visually stimulating, and kids have such access these days, particularly post-pandemic, that you've got a whole world that is swimming upstream against your traditional education style. So what do we do? Well, what do we know kids like? Well, kids actually like movies, they like watching screens, they like TV, they like games, and we need to work towards that. So we know that you know that. We know that you're working with apps that are gamified and so on, but that's not actually what I'm talking about. Let's just go back before I start throwing technical tools at you. How can I show you that, first of all, I want to engage you and I need to be interesting, but then once I've engaged you, how am I going to give you a trick to store it in your memory? We're going to do it right now. I want you to think about right now the journey from your front door to your kitchen. Okay? Let's imagine there are 4 points between the front door and your kitchen. Let's imagine there's standing at the front door right where your feet is. Maybe you guys have a doormat. Okay. Then when you walk through the front door, the second thing that there would be maybe is like a bowl for keys or a side table or something. Maybe, maybe not. That's okay if you do or you don't have one. Or maybe there's a shelf or something there when you walk through the door. And then you walk into the kitchen and there's a kitchen counter. You see, I'm using things that nearly everybody has. And then there's probably a kitchen table. There are 4 things there. Now, what I want you to understand is we need to create a visual of 4 key takeaways from this talk. There may be one that I just shared with you now. Think about it. Did I share anything yet that's interesting? Maybe, maybe not, but that's okay. But what you need to do is if there's something that you were like, wow, yes, that lands for me, take it and put it right down at your feet. It could be a word. You could scribble it in lipstick on the floor. See, I said scribble it in lipstick. Scribble it in lipstick? Okay, now I planted a seed by trying to get you to think of it differently. So you might say, it's up to me. You were like, actually, I'm feeling demotivated. It is really up to me, and I do need to engage my students, and there's a big ripple effect of paying it forward. So you take your lipstick and you write, it's up to me, on the ground, right where your feet is. If not, you could scorch burn it with one of those kind of signs into your doormats, you know, those kind of brush doormats, and it says, it's up to me. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to disrupt your brain so that you know that your doormat says, it's up to me on there. Now it's going to be quite difficult for you to forget that because I just planted it there. But I don't know what you've written, what you've done. You could write it on the glass front door. You could take a black Cokie and write it on your front door. But you need to some degree vandalize or create some visual stimulation for that idea to be able to seed. What I want you to do is I want you to do that 4 times. Maybe have a piece of paper if you want to, but try and get this idea. So in mine, I actually do it at my front door. Then I do indeed have a key box, and I place the idea in a key box, which is on a shelf near my front door. Then I lie something across the kitchen counter, and then I put something on the kitchen table in a bowl. But it's normally kind of weird, and there's a reason for that. That's how it works. This is how we create memory. So the question is will I have succeeded, first of all, to persuade you to remember 4 things, but can you remember the 4 things on your journey from the front door to the bowl on the table, or however you want to do it? So right now you need to think of 4 key stopping points from your front door to your table. Work with me on this. I know I sound weird. That's okay. The other thing you can do, just to go into the point, is if you wonder where I got this idea, this actually comes from Netflix's show, Memory Games. We take snippets from this and we show it to students, and it's absolutely phenomenal. You just need to watch it first so that you feel that the content is age appropriate. But ultimately, this shows you the most clever minds who win the memory championships globally and what they're able to do. It literally will blow kids away, but it teaches them this very trick that I just taught you. If you want to make it more fun, this is a guy called Jason Silver. Look at brain games. You don't have to have Netflix. You can go to YouTube, and then you can just take down some of these little snippets from brain games and from memory games, because ultimately you want to show kids cool stuff. I read somewhere, and I can't remember if it was from Robert Paddock. I think it might have been. And I remember him saying that some data had explained that the challenge with traditional education, as we see it now, maths, social science, English, and so on, is that kids have become so exposed to the rest of the world that the stuff that really intrigues them is the type of stuff that they see. They're interested in life. They're interested in people. They're interested in hacks. They're interested in cool stuff. And so now you need to repackage the way that you do it. Same content, but first of all, how do I get you to remember stuff? The desired response from your class would people would leave. This is what I get in my classes. It's extraordinary. I get kids come up to me and they shake my hand and they say, this is different to other classes. They don't say I'm cool or anything. I have kids say, that was a really good one, sir. You know, and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like, and they're just like, you don't teach it the way anybody else teaches it, because it's almost like, they don't say you don't have rules, but they say you throw a bit of caution to the wind. They say it in a different way. I can't remember what it is. But for now, remember, you've got a job to do, but you could also look at memory, and you could look at brain games. You can see that what I'm interested in is what happens inside you, inside your body, inside your emotional feelings, and inside your mind as an educator. Nothing will change if you don't change, and you won't change if there isn't a connection and there isn't inspiration. Here's why. Every teacher and every student is essentially this incredible chemistry set. Okay, so when you get a reward, you get dopamine. When you get a hug, you get oxytocin. When you get a thrill, you get adrenaline. When you've got stress, you get cortisol, and so on and so on and so on. It's absolutely essential to work out that we can, I don't want to say play with, but in the deep understanding of all the chemicals. So imagine that green is cortisol. Imagine that the blue there in the middle next to the yellow is dopamine. How much reward are you giving? Are you hacking their system to some degree? Is there enough rewards? Is there anything that's thrilling? Is there a virtual hug? So now maybe you can't hug your students because of policy, for example. But one of the things that kids are getting inside games is oxytocin. There is a community, and they feel seen and they feel heard. And it's one of the great mysteries for parents is, why are my kids so obsessed with gaming? It is part dopamine, but the neuroscientist that we work with, Dr. David Rosenstein, shows us that it's also oxytocin. It's belonging, it's sharing. It's being a part of something. And then, of course, getting all those rewards. And I promise you, if more people understood the role of oxytocin as a human, we would be able to play with it more. And that's, to some degree, why people have added in gamification for reward and dopamine. But who's worked out that oxytocin factor? Well, I tell you, who worked it out is Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, because only when he introduced the like, which I think was in 2010 or 2012, did Facebook absolutely explode. Before that, it was pretty average, and he knew how to feed that dopamine loop. So think about this. Think about that within yourself. The other factor, which I'd mentioned before, is a gentleman named Tristan Harris in the movie The Social Dilemma talks about the race to the bottom of the brainstem. Everything is about being thrilling and being perhaps a little controversial, trying to grab attention. There is this massive battle. That's why we've got the likes of Donald Trump, and we've got all sorts of weird and wonderful people out there who are saying extraordinary things and performing extraordinary actions online, on digital platforms, on social platforms, because they realize it's a race to the bottom of the brainstem. We are in the attention economy. Whoever wins is the person that steals your time to some degree and your attention and plant seeds of memory so that you come back for more. And this is the movie. So watch Netflix's Social Dilemma if you haven't seen it. I'm sure that you probably have, but it's a pretty wild ride. And it comes from the social media creators, the guy that created the Facebook like, and many other people that realized that the stuff that they created, while it did many great things for the world, it also created an equal/opposite challenge for the world to try and deal with. So what we need to understand, like you, is that the user's time is this ultimate resource. So with students, they don't necessarily feel that because they're stuck in that situation. But I realize right now, it's 9:34, I've got 15 more minutes to talk to you. How did I do? Are you still listening? Do you care? Are you bothering to do the memory game? Was this worth it for you? Maybe not yet. Hold on. So let's have a look, for example, at esports. We understand that gaming is arguably one of the greatest industries in terms of the amount of income and revenue that's being created. And we know that kids have become absolutely glued to it, to the degree that some of them are spending 3, 4, 5, 6 hours online. The reason why is it's become accessible on the phone, and now Wi-Fi inside our devices or inside homes or inside school or inside public libraries gives us the opportunity to play those games. Accessibility is key. But why am I telling you about gaming? Because gaming offers us an open door. We need to get kids to talk about what games they play. We need to ask them what works for them. We need to ask them why they like it. We need to understand the chemical equation. We need to ask them to bring that in and to talk about it, because you need them back in the room. You can take 5 minutes at the beginning of every class, and what I normally hear teachers say to me is, no, but I can't afford 5 minutes. I say to them, I will make a promise to you that you start with the right 5 minutes, you will get 15% more outcome from the last 55 minutes. That's what we need to understand. What energy are we arriving with inside our classrooms? We're tired. You know, there's all sorts of things. We've got lives at home and kids and wives and husbands and parents and everything. That's a reality. But we are still stuck right now, today, right here. We're stuck at an intersection of, shall I just push on with that the way that it is? Or shall I look at what's sitting in my environment with my students and what's sitting in their environment? And can I grab an injection of renewed energy to see if there's something that will work? Okay, that's not to say that it's not working already or you're not doing a great job. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about adding that 5%, that 15%. It's a little bit like putting your hand in a Scrabble bag, you know, that letter game, and trying to feel around to pull out that triple letter score. That triple letter score is inspiration, engagement, where the child changes the view of you and changes the view of the lesson or the subject and just comes back a little bit more. Because where they are in a world, which is really complicated physically, emotionally, cognitively, the adolescent brain here on the left. They're also surrounded by addictive tech, which is seeking to steal that time away from you. And they're also in this hyper-connected world where they're being rewarded for likes, for their photos, and so on. You, to some degree, for many kids, not for all, are not the most important thing in their world. What's happening in their social environment is incredibly important. You're going to need to consider that in the way in which you process things. The good news is neuroplasticity, is we can change things if we're consistent, and we can build new habits, but we would need to build new habits in ourselves. We change, they change. We may not get it right immediately, but that's really, really important. Weird thing is, so much is free. On our phones, on our computers, inside browsers, there is just so much out there that's free. So you can find inspiring content on TikTok. You can even find it on Discord. You can find it in Instagram Reels. And you'd say, this is absolutely ridiculous. I absolutely hate social media. I understand. But this is just a research tool. You need to see it differently, because what happens, and let me see if I can find it here. I'm going to come back to that now. What happens if there are tools to support you? I'm going to say something crazy. What happens if there are more relatable teachers than you that can support you? That doesn't mean that you're not the lead. It means who can grab their attention, because it's not you. And that's the role that we fill in my social media, in my social life, sorry, is that we say to schools, we're the objective voice. They will tell us because they know we know their landscape. You can try and put a teacher in who loves tech and loves social, but he doesn't know everything that's happening inside TikTok, what the memes are, what the trends are, what the games are. And therefore, he doesn't have the same level of credibility, and therefore they won't share it with you, and therefore you don't have the open door to creep in and try and make some changes. So think about it. Who do you want to partner with? Is your collab with somebody else on campus? Or could your collab be with an American teacher, for example, in Mississippi? Who knows? But are there tools out there to support you? Are there more relatable teacher? And is there a better language than yours? Oh my gosh, disruption. So one of the great things that we can do is to use something like TikTok. I actually asked a handful of students, do you follow TikTok teachers? Yes, we do. Which ones? And they gave me a whole list of them. And I haven't included them here because I then went to Google. I actually went this morning to double check. Type in TikTok teachers. You're done. Everything is there. You can also type it into the search bar of TikTok. You may not have TikTok. You may not know about TikTok. That in itself is going to be an education for you in youth culture. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to find things that trigger for you, but try not to fall down the rabbit hole of ending up losing an hour while you just scroll. Try and stick to teachers, TikTok teachers, social science teachers, English teachers, and see if there's anything there for you. There may not be, but this is just one idea. Then, of course, we've got all of these apps. It doesn't matter what they are. There are so many. I've created a big list which I can send to your team, and then you can all look at them. But imagine me trying to tell you what educational apps you can use when you probably know way more than me around educational apps, because ultimately that's not my strength. My strength is understanding how the brain works and what tools there are out there, not necessarily to rate or grade them, because I don't know you and I don't know your students. It comes to some sense of a bit of humility about allowing people to do their own due diligence, their own research about what works for them, what engages them before they engage their teachers. So just as an example, there was a few here. I mean, look at the lady in the shark outfit on the left. But ultimately, you need to find that fit for you. So how would I go about it? Well, this is how I go about it when I'm in lessons, is I use icebreakers. I try and seize attention. I try and use surprise as my first memory trick. I need to set the tone or change the energy. I might ask them, what's happening in social current affairs? You don't know what it is? Well, if you have a look on something like Twitter and you look at popular hashtags, you can very quickly go and see what is. You might see something around Kanye. What do you guys think about Kanye, for example? You could, for example, when the kids are working in a workshop, you could play music on your phone in the background. No, we can't. Maybe you can't. I don't know. I'm not sure what your policy is. But people say to me, this guy's playing music. What's he doing? Of course, you can get the wrong type of music, which is incredibly embarrassing. But then, even then, if you're humble enough to say, really, is it that bad? Okay, cool. What would you put on? There is engagement. There's a change in tone. Also, games, asking them about games, saying, I don't understand this game, asking them about news, asking them about social influences. We literally can grab people so quickly. Why? Because this is their landscape. I'm stepping onto their turf with some humility, despite how much I may know. And I say, I'm interested in you, listening to you. What can you teach me? I'm going to say it again. What can you teach me? Because when you teach me about you, I can find the way to open those doors. Oops, sorry. So what we now need to understand is we can change things. We're not our thoughts. Those 50 or 60,000 thoughts can be changed through neuroplasticity. But at the moment, you could have students that are arriving bored, uninspired, could be grief-stricken, could be in emotional trauma. And you may not be able to save everybody, because social issues surround those individuals. But if you can start by trying to move people by 3 or 4 or 5% because you reviewed the way you feel in yourself and the way in which you are teaching, you're changing your conditioning, which has an effect by what they are seeing from you. Because we are a human supercomputer. How it works is that what we see through our lens, through our visual cortex and our audible cortex, our ear, gets processed in the hippocampus at the back of the head and gets stored in our operating system. Over time, the environment has an effect. I'm not sure if any of you know about epigenetics, but to some degree, the environment that we sit in can have an effect. So we're sitting in a South African environment at the moment, which is incredibly complex, sometimes incredibly disappointing, but also we've got blue sky. There's a different aspect of the environment. And your students will go home to a certain type of environment. But then are you adding to that environment or are you changing that environment? Are you bringing something new? What's really important, and I think I've only got a couple of minutes left, is the importance of movement. So we work with a company called Neurozone based in Stellenbosch. It's a neuroscience or neuroperformance company. And for the last 5 years, they have looked at what were the indicators of high performance. And they did this before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after the pandemic. And these changed during the pandemic. And those that performed best, that were resilient, that were optimistic, 4 of their 6 habits were based upon movement. Dance, run, walk, all of those simple things, because it connects you back to yourself. It takes you off the hamster wheel of automation, of scrolling feeds, of the stress of work, of students that might be driving you mad or colleagues that might be driving you mad. It gives you breathing space. We're humans and we need that breathing space in order to be able to move forward. Of course, taking a stop to just, you can call it mindfulness or meditation, but silence is incredibly powerful. It connects us back into that flow. This is more for you if you're saying, oh, I'm struggling with this guy. What the heck is he talking about? Try 5 minutes a day for 4 weeks. I guarantee that you'll feel different. I have a brother that teaches mindfulness. He's an expert in it. And it's completely all the science. I mean, it's the front cover of all of these magazines. There is a reason why this has been proven to work around the world, but for hundreds of years. So what do you need to do? We're down the final straight, 2 more minutes to go. You need to mix your media. Imagine you yourself could be stuck on a hamster wheel. How are you teaching at the moment? Going through the same books, or maybe using somebody else to teach you something from the book. And are you helping kids to move, to stretch? We show them that essentially there's an international speaker who talks about changing your state. Okay, so you can actually trick your system, and I do this with my students, that they can do 10 press-ups. And and it sounds weird, like why? And then you can get them to do a stretch. You can get them to say, who's the tallest person in the room? I'm just going to have a quick look to my hands, and there's a bar 1, which I'm going to give away. Maybe people don't have that budget to be giving away bar 1s all the time, But ultimately, movement, stretching, will do things to the system. Stopping, breathing, and feeling. It's unbelievably powerful. It can feel weird, but there's, again, a reason why statistically, those schools that input mindfulness into the first 10 minutes of their class to allow kids to reset and kind of reconnect into their higher selves or their better selves have better academic outcomes. Also journaling. You can use an app like Memento. And Memento just allows you to write down your thoughts. I absolutely hated this lesson. It sucked. The teacher sucked. No problem. Tell them to get it out. Because when you get all of the information out, after a while, you start reflecting on it. You see the pattern. You see the pattern that actually you're saying the same thing. And perhaps you're part of the problem. Very interesting. But to be more specific about what you may have come here for, is my suggestion is to look at TikTok, Reels, Discord, Google for those great teachers. It may take you an hour to find people that you identify with or that you like. But if not, use something interesting. Say you're at home and you have this idea, you want to use something like Screencastify, which means you can quickly put something together. You see something that you really like. Let's just say you're watching Brain Games. And you really like this little snippet on YouTube of Brain Games from Jason Silva. What you do is you press record on Screencastify and it records that snippet, but you can start annotating over the top of it. So it doesn't just become, oh, I could get this on YouTube. It's like you're putting little emoji stickers or you're drawing arrows on the screen. It takes a recording of the screen and it allows you to annotate it. You can do it for 2 or 3 minutes. It just means when you see something, don't let it pass you. Record it and then put something over the top of it and see if that grabs attention. You can use other apps like Wakelet for curation or collaborations. You can use Feedly for news or Mural for visual collabs. Miro, I'm sure lots of you use Miro. Kahoot for quizzes. Slido is classic. So Slido is the ability for me to poll my students. So just for fun, once a month, look, it can get pretty hair raising, is you create a hashtag of your room. So just say you have the name of your school, X School 2022 grade 8. And the kids can go to slido.com, type in that hashtag, and suddenly they're in an open forum. Now you can either make that an anonymous forum or you can make that a named forum. If you make it an anonymous forum, I make it an anonymous forum in mine, and I sometimes get some hair-raising statements. But the point is I get some honesty from a lot of the students about what happens if I have sent a sext, as an example. Slido does phenomenal things. And then, of course, we've got things like Flipgrid. So ultimately, I've got some other links here. I can send those to Hafiza. There's some really great tools. But I thought that today is not about tools because you're already educational and edtech experts to some degree. It's about the change in you to pass the change on in order to create some type of difference. So the question for you is, are you motivated? Firstly, you'll always see for yourself, is there a reason for you to change? And for your colleagues and for your students to try something new. Why would you? I know people are unhappy in their jobs, not necessarily within WCED, everybody is. Why would you? Why wouldn't you? Do that exercise. If there's one thing you do, just do that exercise. It is so telling. Why would you change? And why wouldn't you change? The why wouldn't you is incredibly revealing. But ultimately, we need to remember that if we do a good job at this, if there is a change, and if you do self-reflect, and if you do change your behavior, and you do try new tools, and you are putting your hand in that Scrabble bag, digging for that triple letter score, and you are surprising your students, and you are bringing them back around, and you are hearing them, and you are understanding their chemistry set inside their bodies, you're putting another link in the chain. And that's exactly what we need to do in education. We need to get that rhythm, that vibration, that impact to start. And that's why I do this work, is because if I can get you the second link to think a little bit differently, and then you can get the third link to think differently, it filters down and it's insanely powerful. Inspiration and internal change is a phenomenal factor in making impact. Thank you.
Wow, I think there's so much that you shared, Dean. I think like you gave us snippets of so many different aspects that we need to consider, that we need to look at, that we need to try to tie together, even the metaphor of the linking in itself, that, you know, we're starting just with us and you and where it can actually eventually go. It hit home on so many levels, and I think that we're all probably thinking like you, that was a lot, but it was like a lot of many that just gave us a different perspective of how to really look at social media, how to really look at the technological advances that are currently happening. And I think we are also, I mean, with us being in the e-learning sphere itself, um, we are also sometimes overwhelmed by what is out there, the constant need to keep up to date, the constant need to be relevant, not just in terms of the what we provide to schools in education, but also with our learners and how we're actually taking learning to that level. And it can get quite overwhelming for teachers. It can be overwhelming on our side because we are somewhat removed from the classroom. And I think this was such a brilliant way for us to really look at ourselves in terms of what our role is within that space. Somebody mentioned the other day where one of our previous SG had asked the question around what are you doing when it comes to ICT integration? Not what is e-learning doing, not what is this person doing, what are you doing in your space? And I think when we think about everything that you are saying here, it is far more than just the fact that what we're just putting into the schools, but the very, like you mentioned, in the neurological, the mindfulness, the character building, the empathy, the resources, the using what is out there to bring and hone back and to be mindful around those things and to take it into the learning as a whole. And I think that, sorry, I just got a little bit, all these little thoughts in my head, and I'm just sharing. But I do want to open up to the audience. I'm also going to share at this moment in time a survey link that Dean had requested for us to complete. I noted there was one question. We also shared some of the presentations, images of your presentations, Dean, just to keep the capturing. I want to bring your attention to some of the responses that we got from our polls. We asked the initial question around, our first one was, so let me just go into the polls. Our first question was around, if you look further up into the chat, what is the greatest gift you can give to the teachers? And we had about, I think about 60 odd responses in that. You can look, 49 responses, sorry. So you can actually look into the poll section, and I will share that with everyone as well. The word cloud that was created around that. We had many teachers speaking about support and understanding, school management, empowering leadership, feedback with solutions, time, ability to do great, money, respect, better schools, responsiveness to the circumstances, empathy and collaboration, 5,000 Rand envelope, someone said, more than someone said, positive feedback, agency. And we also asked for another question around what does learner engagement look like to you? And we got answers such as constant stimulation, sharing the experiences, creative engagement, engagements with using technology, thinking skills, hands-on applications, actively engaged, stimulating thinking, hands, heart, piano, class activities, interactivity came across a number of times, connecting with the heart, learner autonomy, temple boys was another one, self-directed, classrooms and so forth. And that was about 31 responses that all came through that word cloud as well. So I do know that we have a few questions. I think Giselle, you had a question. I don't know if you want to ask directly to Dean. You can switch your mic on.
Hello again, Dean. So good to see you. Yo, I feel like I got a double dose of just awesome, inspiring energy from you this morning through a screen. So thank you for that. Wow, wow, wow. And I'm sure everyone feels the same and buzzing on the other side. So the question I had to you was that, because you were saying, like, you know, pique the learner's interest. And do you think it's important for a teacher to be like, first find out what interests their learners, and in getting that from them, in them teaching you, that can then guide you into the things that you then research, like the TikTok and the influencers and things like that, if you perhaps don't know where to start?
Yeah, I think that's also a very, very good piece of advice. And, you know,
Sorry, Dean, you're
right.
just
I mean, there
breaking
is a
up
lot
a
of
little
people
bit.
who don't understand. Oh, sorry, let me just see. Is that better?
Yes,
Otherwise, I can
better.
come off. Maybe
That's
I'll take my
better.
camera off for a second. So I think it's incredibly good advice, and you can do that doing whichever way you want. You can actually do it with a 5 or 10 minute discussion, but do it 2 or 3 times. Just say, I'm really interested in what you're interested in, and you do that fact finding. But you could use a Google Forms, you could use SurveyMonkey, you could use all sorts of fantastic tips and tricks. But what you want to do, that's what I'm saying, is it's very strange with parents, because I try and say to them that, what's the most important thing in your life? And most people say the most important thing in my life is to get my kids through school, to get them to be an okay human, to get them employed, whatever it is. Everybody's got something, but often kids rate the top of the list, maybe not in everybody's world, but pretty much everybody's world. And I'm like, well, what would you invest in order to be able to achieve that? But the problem is what's coming down the pipe, and I'm going to answer your question again specifically, but what's coming down the pipe against us is work, overwhelm, family, limitations around, as you said, budget, all those types of things. But ultimately, if we can get access to Google, that's honestly all they need, because what you can do is you ask a question, you go to Google and you write parent review plus TikTok, or parent review plus Discord. And what you do is, if they say Kanye, you go in and go, what happened to Kanye? As an example, and then it just kicks off differently. And you can stay humble and say, I don't know, I just want to hear you guys speak about this particular issue. I mean, the only challenge that you're going to have is sometimes it gets so animated that you got to calm your class down. That's what we find, that you've got to have a really great control, because you're playing square in their ballpark. But absolutely, I think you need to ask those questions. You need to use whatever mechanism that it is. You need to record that mechanism, but this is the interesting piece, you need to be interested enough. You need to, first of all, want to do that. Then you need to be interested enough to collect the information, and then you need to go to Google. And that's one of the difficulties, is a lot of people say, no, but I don't have time. And a lot of parents say, I'm just not interested. I don't like social media, and I absolutely hate TikTok. No problem, I get it. But I'm afraid that's the bridge. Not necessarily TikTok, could be Reels, could be something else. You'll find out what it is. But you need to understand that there's a bridge, because there is a technological and generational divide. And if we don't attend to it, you've got a whole lot of people that have been exposed for the last decade online, who are seeing all sorts of stuff and who are being stimulated in a certain way. And then you've got a group of people who are 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, even millennials we're speaking to say, wow, this is a different generation. And wait for Gen Alpha. They are also going to be different. It's going to be a different bridge. It's going to be a metaverse bridge. And so what we need to understand is there's a bridge. And it's actually really valuable. It's rewarding when you start to see the bridge and you start to notice it and you start to listen and you start to learn, because it's offering you doors all the time, just for discussion. Discussion creates connection, as long as you can control it. I hope that's helpful.
Giselle?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dean. Appreciate you.
Yeah, lovely to hear from you.
Fantastic. Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question? We are on the brink of the end. I have shared the survey link as well in the chat. Please be so kind to complete it. And also, just before we go, just 2 more minutes to just ask if anybody else has a question for Dean or comment that they want to share. I noted a few comments here. Somebody had mentioned that this is an excellent and inspiring engagement. Change starts from within. And there has been requests around the recording. Yes, it will be available. I will be sharing it next week with extra resources. We also had okay, there we have a question. Siki.
I just want to say but I hear Denise and great. If
Vicky, you're breaking up just a little bit.
can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Thank you. I'm saying thanks to Dean and to you, but I hear Denise's concern. Is it possible if we could also maybe have another session with the teachers, but use our 6 o'clock, our sessions, because this would really, really benefit teachers. I'm just a thought.
Thank you, Siki. I think we'll have the power hour that you speak about at 6 p.m. is with CTLI, so I will make connections with them. And then I will have a chat with Dean in terms of his availability as well. But I'm sure that he would be super keen to have that conversation. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think it would be a great lesson for the collaboration between the Empower Hour of e-learning and the Power Hour of CTLI to do such a session. So thank you again, Siki. That is definitely on the radar.
Okay, yeah, super, no problem. I would be happy to do it. Remember, I'm the first link in the chain.
Hey, definitely.
It's always a bit nervous. It's always a bit nerve-wracking when you say, I'm the first link in the chain. I hope I can land engagement.
No, fantastic. Any other questions that may come forth? Okay, Dean, I have a question for you. In the years that you have been doing this kind of work within the schooling environment, with the learners, with teachers, what has been your greatest lesson? I think that, and if with that lesson, can you give us like a short anecdote that also ties in with that lesson?
I would say that it's actually so simple. There's only one word that came to me, was listening. So we as adults have this incredible set of tools mentally and emotionally. Some may be more advanced, some may be less advanced, but ultimately we have experience on our side. So when things come to us, we are able to, whether the decisions are right or wrong, we're able to use some of those tools which kids don't have to then be able to offer them advice. But you can't do it unless you understand them, unless you listen to them, unless you ask them. And right at the beginning when we started asking, right in August of 2018. It was one of the great things that we did, is we took all the information back from any session and we archived it, we recorded it, and we put it in a place so that we could see what was happening on the landscape. So we know that cyberbullying was much worse, funnily enough, before the pandemic, and it changed after the pandemic. And now it may change back again, but there was something that happened in the pandemic, and I have an idea of why. But ultimately, it would have been difficult to know about it. I would have continued saying cyberbullying is a big issue. Look, cyberbullying remains a big issue. Is it as big as an issue? Well, consistently it's showing me that no, it's actually reduced a little bit, and that's because of a certain thing. Cancel culture is one. And also the nature of the fact that some kids were able to work out that they could get distance from people because they were socially isolated, and that they were able to work that out. Hold on, I don't necessarily have to do this or do that. But for me, it's about listening, and the students, when you understand that you can instruct them more acutely and provide them with solutions by stopping, listening, absorbing, stopping, thinking, reverting. You know, like, what is the best way for me to say this? So when I listen, I go, wow. And also I get a lot of patterns. I start to notice a lot of patterns because our memory is able to store all that. I'm like, wow, this is what I see. And so the great benefit of my social life, and this is not a punt, but I think we're the only company in the world now that teaches teens, preteens, parents, teachers, psychologists, and general practitioner doctors. We're the only company in the world that listens to all 6 audiences. That's why we understand the generational and the technological divide. If you're sitting in the middle of all of those audiences, you can see why the teens are not speaking to their parents, or the teachers are not speaking to the parents, and you can start to see where the problems are, that there's not adequate social policy, there's not adequate boundary, there's not adequate time for parents, that teens are struggling to get a decent mentor or a decent guide in this area that doesn't make them want to tune out. Where does it all start? Collating information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that was actually quite insightful for me as well within the cyber wellness sphere. We are over time. We are 5 minutes over time. Dina, I'm going to ask you if you have your last minute little message you want to give to us, or your last commentary before we close our session this morning.
I think it's easy for me to rattle on. I think I said enough. My big thing is I wish you the best. I know it's not easy, and that's the most important thing. But unfortunately, we get these insane rewards when we start to listen to our own brain and the repetitive rubbish that it says to us. And that's why mindfulness has proven so great, is we start to notice the patterns of our thoughts. I mean, I can give you statistics about how we think the same things. And you have to listen to the brain. The psychologist that we work with, Dr. David Rosenstein, says, allow the thought to come through. Don't push it away, but laugh at it. Say something to it going, yeah, I fancy a change in my life. I can do better. I want more money. And in that, you have to let the thoughts come through, and they don't own you. And then you start to chase new goals, whatever those may be for you. And in education, if it is to make a great impact, that's why you chose the thing, then you need to understand that you probably have past experiences around, how your job is, or working with other people who drive you mad. You're going to have to work around them, because the outcome is going to be rewarding for you before it is for anyone else. But we are these stored engines of information, and we have to try and reverse that somehow.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dean. We highly appreciate this. Was really insightful. Like I said earlier, it gave us so many nuggets of information that really for us to expand on, for us to reevaluate ourselves within that process of learning, within our own learning, as well as that within the education as a whole. And it really reverts or shifts or maybe includes other elements into the concept of quality when we speak of quality education. And it's highly appreciative that you have made this time with us to be sharing your insights, to be sharing your wisdom within the work that you have done, and also where we can take it a step further and beyond the classroom as well. And yeah, I can only give a massive thank you. I know everybody's also feeling a gratitude for your sharing, and also the request to share this with our teachers is another a commentary on how impressive as well as insightful the session has been. So I just want to ask everybody to give your reaction to Dean, to show your appreciation of this work that he has done and that he's doing. I will share all of the links that also come forward as well. Dean will share a few with me, and I will share the YouTube clips as well that I shared earlier with you. The recording will also be made available within next week, and we will also share some of those links that Dean had mentioned as well. So once again, thank you for joining us on this morning, and everybody have a fantastic and beautiful weekend. Take care of yourself, be mindful, and be together and well with your family. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hafiza. Really appreciate it. You're amazing. I do this because you're persuasive.
Fantastic.
That's the truth.
Thanks so much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Have a blessed day, everybody, and thank you once again.